But sometimes when you're given a warning, you're not given a second chance about that warning. So heed it. Stop. Don't just ignore it and say, oh, that's a bunch of bunk. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Oh, that's just a joke. There's no way that could be. At least stop and pray and say, God, is this for real? And wait on the Lord to give you an answer before you don't do anything about something when you're warned against it. So in verse 15, with the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife out of here, your 2 daughters. Forget the sons-in-law. They don't even ask about them again. Or you'll be swept away when the city is punished. In other words, Lot, we aren't sparing you if you don't get going. You're lucky you got spared at all. Thank your uncle Abraham, because he interceded for you. 16, when they hesitated, I can see the irritation and the forcefulness. The men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and the 2 daughters and led them out of the city. For the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives and don't look back. Don't stop anywhere on the plain. Flee to the mountains or you'll be swept away. But Lot said to them, oh no, my lord, your servant has found favor in your eyes and you've shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I'll die. He's basically saying, I can't make it in the mountains. Please, can we, look, there's a town near enough to run to. It's small, but if you'll let me flee there, then my life could be spared. And so he said to him, very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down. Who did it? The Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So it's very clear the angels aren't actually doing this. They're in charge of preparing. They're in charge of supernatural stuff going on. But God himself said, no, I'm going to actually be the one. The Lord raining it down from heaven. I'm going to destroy the 2 cities. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and all the vegetation of the land. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he stood before the Lord. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, towards all the land of the plain, and all he saw was dense smoke rising up from the land like smoke from a furnace. And then God destroyed the cities of the plain. He remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had, in fact, lived. Y'all, there's not any other warning than don't look back. I'm fixing to do something. It's going to be catastrophic. I'm going to destroy it all. Run for your lives. I'm going to spare you going in the mountains, let you go to this little city, this little town. I don't know if it's just not as bad or whatever. It's not as bad as Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm going to let you go there, but get going, because I'm not going to start this until you get there. So go ahead and get there, and then I'm going to rain down fire and brimstone. And he did. Now, one of the things I've thought about was, this sounds like a volcano erupting. And I thought, what if this is, like Vesuvius or something, where God erupted it up out of the earth and it all fell back down. So it looked like it was falling from the sky and everything was destroyed. And, when lava has come over people, they almost look like a pillar of salt laying there in ash. But that's not what the Bible says. It doesn't say that she turned into ash. It doesn't say that a volcano came up from the ground. It says God himself, by his own hand, sent fire and brimstone down out of heaven, so he can control all that stuff. He could have brought it up from the earth if he wanted. He did that in the flood. He brought some up from the earth and flooded, and some from the sky and flooded it down. And also, she didn't turn into ash. She turned into salt. It's interesting. All right. Then it gets so much worse. Okay. Then in verse 30, Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar. Remember, that's a little town he was allowed to go to. Settled in the mountains, where he was afraid to stay, in Zoar. It's so interesting that he was afraid to go to the mountains before, and now he's afraid of Zor. It's just interesting. And he said his 2 daughters lived, he and his 2 daughters left there. They go in the mountains. They live in a cave. So maybe he thought he couldn't handle being in a cave, but now maybe he can. Maybe he thought before, I can't make it all the way across the plains into the mountains. I'll have a heart attack and die. But can we stop over here in Zor? But then once he gets in Zor, he's like, I need to get out of here. So him and his 2 daughters go there. Remember, his wife has already just died. She is a pillar of salt. So it's now just him and his 2 daughters. And one day the older daughter says to the younger one,